Imagine a punishment so terrifying, so agonizing, it would send shivers down your spine. This isn't the tale of a horror movie. This is history darker, more brutal, and as real as it gets. It's called flaying, a method of execution that tore through civilizations across centuries, from the Assyrians of Mesopotamia to religious rituals among the Aztecs, right through to medieval Europe. Flaying was more than an execution method. It was a display of power, a terrifying warning to enemies, and even an offering to the gods. Today we look into the rather unsavory reasons for this brutal practice, the psychological impact on those who actually witnessed it, and the grim legacy it has left in human history. So why would anyone choose such an agonizing method of death? What kind of message did it send? And why did societies, separated by thousands of miles, each turn to this gruesome method of punishment? Let's peel back the layers on one of the most painful practices in history, if you're brave enough to keep listening. The Assyrian Empire, famous for its greatness and authority, was equally infamous for the public displays of terror it perpetrated. Some triumphal carvings and inscriptions boast by the Assyrian kings celebrate victories over rebellions put down. But they didn't stop there. They wanted their enemies to see their strength. To the Assyrians, flaying was more than a punishment. It was a form of psychological warfare, or to hang on the walls of the captured cities, or even along the highways. Just imagine standing there in the smell, the screams, the brutality of it all. To onlookers, the message was crystal clear. This is what you get when you stand against Assyrian power. The Assyrians were the artists of fear. By flaying, they crushed the spirits along with the bodies of their enemies. It was part of this terrifying display. Low rebellion and an unchallenged empire. The psychological impact was as powerful as the physical agony, setting a scar not just on individuals, but on whole societies. Now let's cross an ocean to the heart of the Aztec Empire, where flaying takes on a whole new meaning. This was not punishment for the Aztecs, but an act of religious duty. During the yearly festivals of Xipe Totec, known as the Flayed One, priests would flay captives and wear their skin as part of a ritual symbolizing rebirth and renewal. These prisoners of war were highly selected captives for this sacred ceremony. Skin flaying was followed by priests dancing with their worn skins in honor of Xipe Totec, a god of agriculture and renewal. In a grim sort of way, this was symbolic of the shedding of the old to allow for the new, much like the plants which grow from the soil enriched by decaying matter. Devotion, a complex act with sacral overtones that would achieve prosperity and strength for their people. With each layer of skin removed, they meant a sacrifice that kept the wheels of natural and spiritual life and death cycles going. Medieval Europe added yet another twist to this dark practice. Here, flaying became a tool of justice. It was a public punishment, preserved for the most despised crimes, those perpetrated by traitors, murderers, and heretics. It had never been enough just to take away a person's life by flaying them. What was intended was to make an example out of them, one that would be etched in the minds of people for generations. Flayings often occurred in city squares, where locals gathered to watch the sentences being carried out. Try to stand among the taut and silent crowd as the condemned is stripped, sometimes bit by bit, of that skin standing between him and the world. Brutal, yet purposeful, a show and tell to discourage criminality and rebellion. A tool of order. It wasn't sufficient that criminals were punished. They must be displayed, a constant reminder in those twitchy moments that the price of lawbreaking was horrifying. However, unlike the religious motives of the Aztecs or the Assyrians for doing it in relation to warfare, medieval flaying was cold and calculating, meant as control. So, what was the long-lasting effect of such brutal displays on societies? Fear, compliance, and an urchin variety of awe. Flaying worked as a tool well past mere pain. It was a way of psychological manipulation, a tactic to keep societies in line. The spectacle forced communities to confront the terrible costs of disobedience, rebellion, or disrespect for authority. These punishments publicly grew into infamous signs of oppression over time. To this very day, scenes of flaying fill art and literature, ghostly visions from some darker, crueler plane of human experience. From ancient Assyria to Aztec ritual to medieval law, the lesson of flaying about pain and power was one that would continue well after punishments were over. Gory as these stories may be, they remind one of a certain point: the resilience of the human spirit. Before fear, humanity has always found ways to override the cruelties, stand against oppression, and rise above the most brutal aspects of history. Let us remember the dark chapters of our past, not to dwell in its horror, but to honor the strength which it takes to build a better future. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest and most fascinating corners of history.